The wind howled through the vale wood like a wounded animal, carrying ice and the promise of a brutal night. Seren pressed her back against the crooked wall of her shelter, listening to the branches creak and groan above her. 3 moons she had lived out here in the borderlands, surviving on roots and stubbornness, and the desperate need to keep her little brother alive. Seren, Ren's small voice cut through the wind's fury. The wall is shaking again. She looked at the eastern side of their shelter where gaps had opened between the branches she'd woven together with frozen fingers. Snow was already creeping through, dusting the dirt floor white. "I see it, little wolf," she said, forcing calm into her voice. "I'll fix it in the morning." "You said that yesterday." Seren's chest tightened. He was right. But yesterday she'd spent every hour of daylight searching for food, and the day before that she'd been too weak from hunger to do more than gather kindling. Their shelter, built from broken branches and desperate hope, was failing piece by piece. An Omega alone in the wilderness was a death sentence. An Omega with a 7-year-old to protect was something worse, a slow execution measured in frozen nights and empty bellies. She pulled Ren closer, wrapping her thin blanket around them both. His small body trembled against hers, and she could feel his ribs too clearly through his tunic. "Tell me about the valley again," he whispered, "the one Mama used to talk about." Saren closed her eyes. Their mother had spoken of the Alpha territories beyond the Valewood, where the great packs lived in plenty, where Omegas were treasured, not cast out. Fairy tales, nothing more. "Tomorrow," she murmured. "Sleep now." But sleep didn't come for Seren. She lay awake, listening to the wind, calculating how many days they had left. A week, perhaps. Maybe less if the storms continued. Just before dawn, a sound pierced the wind's constant moan. A howl, but wrong somehow. Broken. Pained. Seren sat up slowly, her heart hammering. Wolves roamed the Valewood, she knew. The border packs who had no territory. The rogues and exiles. They generally avoided her shelter, perhaps sensing the Omega in her blood. The howl came again, closer now. And beneath it, another sound that made her blood freeze. Men's voices. Laughing. "Stay here," she breathed to Ren. "Don't move. Don't make a sound." She slipped out into the gray pre-dawn light, her bare feet burning against the frozen ground. The voices were coming from the eastern ridge, maybe 200 paces away. Seren crept through the skeletal trees, using every trick her mother had taught her about moving silently. She smelled them before she saw them. Alpha musk, thick and aggressive, mixed with something metallic. Blood, lots of it. Through a gap in the thorn brush, Seren saw 5 men in the colors of the King's Guard, the human king who ruled the lowlands with iron and cruelty. They surrounded something on the ground, taking turns kicking it while their leader watched with a satisfied smile. "Not so mighty now, are you, dog?" The leader spat. "The king will pay handsomely for proof of your death." The thing on the ground moved, and Seren's breath caught. It was a man. Massive, even curled in on himself against the blows. His clothes had been reduced to bloody rags, and silver chains bound his wrists, the metal sizzling against his skin where it touched. Silver. Only one kind of creature burned at the touch of silver. A shifter. A wolf. And not just any wolf. The scent that reached her through the wind, beneath the blood and pain, was unlike anything she had ever encountered. It hit her like a physical force, making her knees buckle. Dominance and power and something ancient rolled off him in waves. This was no rogue. This was an alpha of the highest order. One of the guards drew a blade, its edge gleaming with a sickly coating that made Seren's stomach turn. "Hold him still," the leader ordered. "I want this kill to be slow." The alpha on the ground raised his head, and Seren caught a glimpse of eyes that blazed like molten amber even through his agony. He snarled something in the old tongue, his voice raw but defiant. The guard laughed and pressed the poisoned blade against the alpha's throat. Seren moved without thinking. Later, she would wonder what madness possessed her. An outcast Omega against 5 armed soldiers? It was suicide. But something deeper than reason drove her forward. She burst from the thorn brush, screaming like a wild thing, arms flailing. The guard spun toward her in shock, and in that moment of confusion, she threw herself over the fallen alpha's body. "Sanctuary!" she screamed, invoking the old law that even the human king couldn't ignore. "I claim sanctuary for this man under the rights of the Valewood. He is under my protection." The leader's face twisted with rage. "You stupid Omega! Do you know what you're doing?" "I know the law," Seren said, her voice shaking but clear. "Any creature who claims sanctuary in the borderlands cannot be harmed until the next full moon. That's 6 days. You kill him now, you violate sacred ground, and every pack in the north will hunt you down." It was a bluff. A desperate, foolish bluff. She had no idea if the old laws still held power. But the guards hesitated. The leader held up a hand, his eyes calculating. "No. Lord Malachar wants this one alive if possible, dead only if necessary." He smiled coldly at Seren. 6 days, Omega. Keep your broken wolf. Nurse him back to health if you can. When the full moon rises, we'll return to finish what we started. And we'll take you as payment for your interference. He gestured to his men, and they melted back into the forest, their laughter echoing long after they disappeared. Seren stayed frozen, her body still covering the alpha beneath her. His breathing was shallow, labored, each exhale a wet rasp that spoke of internal damage. "Can you move?" she whispered. "I grunt." Then words in heavily accented common tongue. "Why did you do that?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Can you move or not?" Slowly, painfully, he began to push himself up. Seren scrambled to help, wedging herself under his arm to support his weight. He was enormous, easily a foot taller than her and twice as broad. "I have shelter," she said. "It's not much, but it's hidden." Those amber eyes found hers, searching her face with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You are Omega," he said. Not a question. "Yes." "Alone?" "I have my brother. He's 7. Something flickered in his expression, surprise, perhaps, or respect. "You should leave me," he said. "They will come back. They will kill you for helping me." Seren tightened her grip on his arm and began to walk, half dragging him toward her shelter. "Probably," she agreed. "But I didn't survive 3 moons in the Valewood just to watch a man be butchered in front of me. Now shut up and walk." Getting the alpha to her shelter nearly killed them both. He was heavier than she had estimated, and weaker than he wanted to admit. Twice he collapsed completely, and twice Seren somehow found the strength to haul him back to his feet. By the time her crooked little shelter came into view through the trees, her whole body was trembling with exhaustion. "Seren!" Ren's face appeared at the entrance, his eyes going wide. "What is that?" "Help me," she gasped. "Get the door." Ren scrambled to pull aside the woven branch door, and Seren hauled the alpha inside. He collapsed onto the pile of leaves and moss that served as her sleeping area, his breath coming in short, agonizing bursts. In the dim light, she could finally see the full extent of his injuries. The guards hadn't just beaten him, they'd tortured him. Long cuts covered his arms and chest, each one edged with that same sickly sheen she'd seen on the blade. His wrists were raw and blistered where the silver chains had burned him. "Is he dying?" Ren whispered. "Not if I can help it." Seren moved to her small store of supplies. She had precious little: some dried yarrow for wounds, a handful of willow bark for fever, clean rags she'd been saving for emergencies. "Water," she said to Ren, "the clean snow from the northern drift. As much as you can carry." Her brother nodded and disappeared outside. Seren knelt beside the alpha, carefully cutting away what remained of his shirt. The wounds were worse than she'd feared. The edges had turned black, and dark veins spiderwebbed out from each cut across his skin. Poison. Whatever coated those blades was spreading through his body. "Hey," she said, gently tapping his cheek. "I need you to stay awake. What's your name?" His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "What? Your name. Tell me your name." "Kale," he rasped. "Kale." She tested the word. "I'm Seren. I'm going to help you, but I need you to stay with me. Can you do that?" A ghost of a smile crossed his cracked lips. "Bossy Omega. You have no idea. Now hold still." She cleaned his wounds as best she could, trying to ignore the way her hands shook. Through it all, Kale watched her with those strange amber eyes, his gaze tracking her every movement. "You're not afraid of me," he said eventually. Seren snorted. "You can barely lift your head. Why would I be afraid?" "You know what I am. A wolf shifter, yes. I'm not stupid." Seren paused in her work, meeting his eyes. "My mother was killed by human soldiers when I was 14. Ren and I were cast out of our village for being wolf-touched because our grandmother was a shifter, 3 generations back. We don't even carry the blood anymore, but that didn't matter to them." She resumed cleaning. "So no, wolves don't frighten me. Humans frighten me." Kale was quiet for a long moment. "The men who did this to me," he said slowly, "they serve Lord Malachar of the Lowlands. I know the name. He's been hunting wolves for years. He has a new weapon now, a poison that kills our kind slowly, prevents us from healing, from shifting." Kale's jaw tightened. "My people don't know. I was coming to warn them when they ambushed me." "Your people?" Seren's hand stilled. "Who exactly are your people?" Before he could answer, his body seized violently, his back arched off the ground, a strangled growl tearing from his throat, and his eyes rolled back. "Kale!" Seren grabbed his shoulders, trying to hold him still. "Kale, stay with me!" But he was gone, lost in the grip of whatever venom was coursing through his veins. His skin burned beneath her palms, hotter than any fever she'd ever felt, and the black veins were spreading faster now, creeping up his neck toward his face. He was dying, right in front of her, and she had nothing that could save him. Unless... Serene's pulse raced as a forbidden thought surfaced. "No," she whispered to herself. "You swore you'd never use it again." But Kale convulsed again, blood foaming at the corner of his mouth, and Seren knew she had no choice. She hadn't touched the gift since her mother died, had buried it so deep she'd almost convinced herself it was gone. But as she pressed her hands against Kale's chest and reached for that hidden place inside her, it answered like it had been waiting all along. The gift had always felt like roots to Seren. When she closed her eyes and reached for it, she could sense them spreading beneath the frozen ground, a vast network connecting every tree, every plant, every living thing in the Valewood. Her mother had called it Earth Song, the ability to hear what the forest was saying and, sometimes, to speak back. Using it was forbidden, dangerous. The last time Seren had reached for the Earth Song, she'd been 14, trying desperately to save her mother from the soldiers' blades. The forest had answered her cry with fury, roots erupting from the ground, branches whipping like weapons. It hadn't been enough to save her mother, but it had been enough for the village to brand her witch, monster, wolf-touched. Now, 7 years later, Seren reached for that power again, feeling it surge up through her palms where they pressed against Kale's burning chest. "Show me," she breathed. "Show me what's killing him." The Earth Song answered. She saw the poison as the forest saw it, a wrongness that didn't belong, black threads woven through Kale's blood like parasitic vines strangling a healthy tree. But beneath the poison, she sensed something else. A power so vast it took her breath away, ancient and wild and barely contained. Kale's wolf. It was still there, still fighting, but the poison was slowly suffocating it. "Seren?" Ren's frightened voice cut through her trance. "Your hands are glowing." She couldn't stop now. All her focus narrowed to the connection between her palms and Kale's chest, between her gift and his dying wolf. I hear you, she whispered to that wild power inside him. I'm going to help. But I need you to fight. Can you do that? A pulse of something warm answered her, weak but determined. Seren drew on the earth song, pulling energy from the frozen roots beneath the shelter, from the sleeping trees, from the stubborn moss clinging to the rocks. She wove it together and pushed it into Kale, not to heal him directly, but to strengthen his wolf, to give it the energy it needed to burn out the poison on its own. The black veins on Kale's skin began to retreat. Slowly at first, then faster. The darkness pulled back from his neck, his chest, and his arms. His body temperature dropped from dangerous to merely feverish. Seren poured everything she had into the connection, giving until there was nothing left, until the earth song slipped from her grasp and she collapsed forward onto Kale's chest, completely spent. The last thing she heard before unconsciousness claimed her was Ren calling her name. She woke to warmth. That was wrong. The shelter was never warm. But now something hot pressed against her side, and a heavy weight pinned her arm. Seren opened her eyes. Kale's face was inches from hers. At some point while she was unconscious, he had shifted position, curling around her like a protective barrier. His arm lay across her waist, heavy and possessive, and his nose was pressed into her hair. The black veins were gone. His skin had returned to a healthy bronze, and when Seren carefully pressed her hand to his forehead, she found no trace of fever. He's been like that for hours, Ren whispered from across the shelter. He moved in his sleep and just grabbed you. I tried to pull you away, but he growled at me. He growled at you? Not mean growling, more like warning growling, like when a dog has a bone it doesn't want to share. Seren tried to carefully extract herself from Kale's grip. Immediately, his arm tightened, and a low rumble vibrated through his chest. Kale, she said quietly, I need to get up. The rumbling stopped. His eyes opened, and for a moment, they were pure molten gold before fading, back to amber. Confusion crossed his features as he registered their position. Forgive me, my wolf, it. He released her and sat up abruptly, putting distance between them. How do you feel? She asked. Better. He looked down at his healed wounds with something like wonder. How is this possible? That poison should have killed me within hours. Seren said nothing, but her silence was answer enough. Kale's gaze sharpened. What did you do? I helped. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. They stared at each other. Seren refused to look away. She'd survived too much to be intimidated by a hard stare, even from an alpha. Finally, Kale's expression softened. You saved my life. Whatever gift allowed you to do that, I will not press you to reveal it. But I need you to understand something. What? He leaned closer, and his scent washed over her, pine and winter wind and something deeper that made her pulse quicken. My wolf has decided you belong to us. I can feel it even now, howling at me to protect you, to provide for you, to never let you out of my sight. Seren's mouth went dry. That's the fever talking. The fever is gone. This is something else entirely. His eyes burned into hers. I am Kale of the Northern Reaches, Alpha of the Stormfang Pack, High King of all the wolf territories. The world tilted. You're the Alpha King, Seren whispered. The Alpha King, and I just used forbidden magic to save your life in a shelter made of broken branches. Yes. A smile ghosted across his lips. And now you have a problem. What problem? In 6 days, those guards will return. They'll try to kill me and take you. And my wolf has already decided that anyone who threatens what's ours will die screaming. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch impossibly gentle for hands that could clearly destroy. So I suggest you start thinking of me as more than just a patient, because like it or not, our fates are now tied together. The next 2 days passed in a strange rhythm of tension and tenderness. Kale's body healed with supernatural speed now that the poison had been purged. By the second morning, he could stand without swaying. By the second evening, he was pacing the small shelter like a caged predator, his broad shoulders brushing the walls with every turn. "You're making me dizzy," Seren said from her corner, where she was attempting to repair a tear in Ren's only spare tunic. Kyle stopped mid-stride. "Your shelter is too small." "My shelter has kept us alive for 3 moons. Show some respect." A sound escaped him that might have been a laugh. "You have a sharp tongue for an Omega. And you have poor manners for a king." Ren giggled from his spot by the entrance, where he was keeping watch as Kale had taught him. The Alpha King had taken an unexpected interest in her brother, showing him how to read tracks in the snow, how to identify which bird calls meant danger. It should have annoyed Seren. Instead, it made something warm unfurl in her chest each time she saw them together. "The shelter needs reinforcement," Kale said, his tone shifting to something more serious. "The eastern wall won't survive another storm." "I know. I've been meaning to fix it." "With what? Broken branches and hope?" He gestured at the gaps where wind whistled through. "This isn't a home, Seren. It's a slow death waiting to happen." The words stung more than they should have. "It's what I have." Kyle's expression softened. He crossed the small space and crouched before her, close enough that his scent wrapped around her like a blanket. "I didn't mean it as criticism," he said quietly. "I meant that you deserve better. You and the pup both." Seren's needle stilled. "We survive. That's enough." "No." His hand came up to cup her cheek, tilting her face toward his. "It's not." The air between them thickened. Seren found herself leaning into his touch, her body responding to his proximity in ways her mind couldn't control. "Kyle," she whispered. A warning, a plea. She wasn't sure which. "I know we barely know each other. I know this is madness. But my wolf won't be silenced. Every moment I'm near you, it howls to claim you." A sharp whistle cut through the moment. Ren's warning signal. Kale was on his feet instantly, all softness gone. He moved to the entrance in silence, peering through the gaps in the woven branches. "What is it?" Seren breathed. "Smoke. Coming from the south. And I smell horses." Seren's blood turned to ice. The guards. They'd said 6 days, but only 4 had passed. "They came early," she said. Kale turned to face her, and in his eyes she saw a terrible protective fury that promised violence. "Take Ren," he said. "Go north, deeper into the Valewood. Don't stop until you reach the river." "What?" "No, I'm not leaving you to face them alone." "Seren." He gripped her shoulders. "There are at least 10 of them. I can smell them. I'm strong, but I'm not fully healed, and they have more of that poison. If I'm protecting you and the pup, I can't fight at full strength." "Then we all run together." "They have horses. They'll catch us." His jaw tightened. "But if I stay, if I give them a target, you can escape. I can buy you time." "You'll die." "Perhaps." He smiled, and it was the saddest thing she'd ever seen. "But you'll live, and that is all that matters to my wolf." Seren refused to run. She planted her feet and glared up at the Alpha King with every ounce of stubbornness she possessed. "I didn't save your life just to watch you throw it away. We fight together, or we flee together. Those are your only options. You're the most infuriating woman I've ever met." "Good. Then you'll remember me." Something cracked in Kale's expression. He moved faster than she could track, one hand fisting in her hair, the other gripping her waist, and then his mouth was on hers. The kiss was not gentle. It was desperate and fierce, filled with all the words they hadn't had time to say. Seren gasped against his lips, and he swallowed the sound, deepening the kiss until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. I will remember you, he growled against her mouth. Every moment of every day for the rest of my existence, but I need you to live, Seren. Can you understand that? Tears burned her eyes. Kale. Seren. Ren's voice cracked with fear. They're coming through the trees. There was no more time. Kale shifted. One moment he was a man, the next he was the largest wolf Seren had ever seen. Midnight black fur, shot through with silver at the ruff, and eyes that blazed like twin suns. He was magnificent, terrifying, beautiful. He looked back at her once, and in that gaze she read everything. Protect the pup, run north, and don't look back. Then he launched himself toward the approaching soldiers with a roar that shook snow from the branches. Come on! Seren grabbed Ren's hand and ran. Behind her, she heard the sounds of battle. Men screaming, steel clashing, the terrible snarls of a wolf fighting for his life. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, but she forced herself to keep moving. For Ren. She had to survive for Ren. They ran until her lungs burned. The sounds of fighting had faded behind them, replaced by the eerie silence of the deep Valewood. Seren. Ren tugged at her hand. Listen. She stopped, straining her ears. At first, nothing. Then, faintly, the sound of hoofbeats, coming from ahead of them. No, she breathed. No, no, no. They'd been herded. The soldiers behind had driven them straight into a trap. 5 riders emerged from the mist between the trees. At their head rode a man whose cruel smile made her skin crawl. Well, well. His voice was silk over broken glass. The little Omega who invoked sanctuary. Lord Malachar will be so pleased to meet you. Seren shoved Ren behind her. Stay away from us. The man laughed. I am Captain Aldrich, and you, little wolf-touched, have caused me a great deal of trouble. The Alpha, Seren said, hating how her voice shook. What happened to him? Aldrich's smile widened. Bleeding out in the snow, I imagine. My men had orders to wound, not kill. Lord Malachar wants to execute the so-called Alpha King publicly. He reached out and gripped Seren's chin, forcing her face up. But you weren't part of the plan. A pleasant surprise. Let her go. Ren launched himself at Aldrich, small fists swinging. The captain backhanded him without even looking, sending the boy sprawling into the snow. Ren! Seren lunged for her brother, but Aldrich's hand closed around her throat. Enough. His grip tightened until spots danced in her vision. You're coming with me, Omega, and you're going to tell me exactly what you did to heal that wolf, or I'll make your brother's death last for days. The threat to Ren broke something inside her. Seren stopped struggling, stopped thinking. She simply reached for the earth song and let it answer. The forest exploded. Roots erupted from the frozen ground, wrapping around Aldrich's legs, his arms, and his throat. He released her with a strangled cry as the earth itself turned against him. His men's horses reared in panic, throwing their riders, and the trees groaned as branches whipped down like striking serpents. Witch! Aldrich screamed through the roots, crushing his windpipe. She's a witch! Seren barely heard him. Power surged through her, more than she'd ever channeled before, and it felt like drowning and flying at the same time. She could sense every tree in the Valewood, every root and branch and sleeping seed. They were hers to command. Kill them, something whispered. Kill them all. They threatened the pup. For one terrible moment she almost did. Then Ren's voice cut through the roaring in her ears. Seren, stop. You're hurting yourself. She looked down at her hands and saw blood dripping from her nose, her ears, and the corners of her eyes. The power was consuming her. With the last of her will, Seren released the earth song. The roots fell still. And Seren collapsed beside her brother, her vision going dark as unconsciousness claimed her once more. The last thing she heard was howling. Dozens of wolves, their voices rising in a chorus that seemed to shake the very sky. Siren dreamed of roots. They wound through her body like veins, connecting her to something vast and ancient. And through that connection, she sensed him. Kale. He was hurt, bleeding, but alive, his wolf spirit burning like a beacon in the darkness. When she finally opened her eyes, she was no longer in the Valewood. She lay on furs softer than anything she'd ever touched, in a room of polished timber and warm firelight. The walls were hung with tapestries depicting wolves running beneath a moon. "You're awake." Siren turned her head to find a woman sitting beside her bed. Old, with silver hair braided down her back and eyes the color of winter storms. "Where am I? Where's Wren?" "The pup is safe, eating his weight in honey cakes in the kitchens, last I checked." The old woman's lips curved. "You've been unconscious for 3 days." 3 days. Siren struggled to sit up. "The soldiers. Captain Aldrich. What happened?" "Dead. Most of them. The ones who survived fled south." "Who are you?" "I am Fenella, Alpha of the Ashwood Pack, and Regent of the Northern Reaches in my nephew's absence." Her storm-gray eyes studied Siren with uncomfortable intensity. "My nephew being the stubborn fool you pulled from death's door?" "Kale's aunt." Siren's head swam. "He's alive?" "Barely. He refused to let them treat him until they'd located you and the pup. Threatened to tear out the throat of anyone who tried to keep him still." Something hot pressed behind Siren's eyes. "That's stupid. He should have let them help him." "My nephew has always been ruled by his heart more than his head." Fenella leaned forward. "Now, you and I need to have a conversation about what exactly you are." There was no point in lying, not when the evidence was so damning. "Earth Song," Siren whispered. "My grandmother called it Earth Song, the ability to hear the forest and sometimes make it listen back." Fenella was quiet for a long moment. "Earth singers haven't been born in over 200 years. We thought the bloodline extinct. My grandmother was the last. She hid it, passed the knowledge to my mother, who passed it to me. We kept it secret because people kill what they don't understand." "Yes, they do." The door burst open. Kale stood in the doorway, his chest heaving and bandages visible beneath his half-open shirt. He looked like he'd just fought his way through an army to get here. "You're awake." 2 words, but he said them like they contained his entire world. "You should be in bed," Fenella said sharply. Kale ignored her completely. He crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside Siren's bed, his hands finding her face, her shoulders, her arms, as if reassuring himself she was real. "I thought I lost you," he rasped. "When the scouts brought you in, you weren't breathing. Your heart had stopped." "I'm here." Siren covered his hands with hers. "I'm alive. You almost died saving me. Again." "To be fair, I was mostly saving Wren." A broken laugh escaped him. "Even now you refuse to let me be grateful." Fenella cleared her throat. "I'll leave you 2 alone, but Kyle, Lord Malachar knows you survived. He'll be coming with his full force." "Let him come. I'll be ready." His aunt left. In the silence that followed, Siren became acutely aware of how close Kale was. "Your aunt knows what I am," she said quietly, "about the Earth Song." "I know. Doesn't that frighten you, having something that dangerous near your pack?" Kale leaned forward and pressed his forehead to hers, breathing her in. "The only thing that frightens me is the thought of you walking away. Of watching you disappear into that forest and never seeing you again." "Kale. Stay." The word was rough, desperate. "Stay with me, Siren. Not as a guest or a refugee. Stay as my mate. Let me give you the home you deserve." Her heart stuttered. "You're asking me to be your queen." "I'm asking you to be mine. The crown is just details." Before she could answer, a horn sounded in the distance. Kyle's head snapped up, his body going rigid. "What is that?" Siren asked. His face had turned to stone. "War horn. Malachar's forces have been spotted crossing the southern border." He met her eyes. He's brought an army. The next hours were chaos. Seren watched from her window as the Stormfang stronghold transformed into a war camp. Wolves in both human and animal forms streamed through the gates, answering their king's call. You should eat something. Seren turned to find Ren standing in the doorway, a plate of bread and cheese in his small hands. He looked different here, less haunted. The shadows under his eyes had faded, and his cheeks had filled out from regular meals. I'm not hungry, she said. Ren set the plate down anyway and climbed onto the bed beside her. Kale says the bad men are coming to hurt the wolves. He says we have to stay inside where it's safe. Kale is right. But you don't want to stay inside. It wasn't a question. Seren pulled him close. I want to help. But I'm not a warrior. Ren, I'd only get in the way. You could do the earth thing again, like in the forest. Her blood chilled. Using that power hurts me. If I use too much, I could die. Ren was quiet for a moment. But if you don't use it, Kale might die. And the wolves. And then the bad men will find us anyway. Out of the mouths of children, Seren thought bitterly. A knock at the door made them both jump. Fenella entered, her face grave. The scouts have returned. Malakar's force is larger than we anticipated. 300 soldiers, 50 of them mounted, and he's brought siege weapons. 300. Against perhaps 80 wolves. Can you win? Seren asked. Fenella's silence was answer enough. There's more. Malakar has made an offer. He'll withdraw his forces and sign a peace treaty, in exchange for one thing. Seren already knew what she was going to say. He wants you, the witch who commands the forest. He believes your power could be weaponized to destroy wolfkind entirely. Fenella's eyes held no judgment, only sorrow. Kale refused, of course, nearly tore the messenger's head off. But you should know the option exists. It's not an option, Seren said flatly. I know. Fenella moved to the window. He's planning to lead the charge himself. Put himself at the front of the line where the fighting will be thickest. Seren's heart seized. That's suicide. That's Kale. He won't ask his wolves to face danger he's not willing to face himself. Fenella turned back to her. If he dies tomorrow, it won't just be the pack that loses its king. It will be you losing your mate. The word hit Seren like a physical blow. Mate. They hadn't completed the bond, but somehow the word still felt true. After Fenella left, Seren looked down at her brother. I need you to promise me something. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever you see or hear, stay hidden. Stay safe. Ren's lower lip trembled, but he nodded. I love you, little wolf, she murmured into his hair. I love you too. Please don't die, Seren. That night, Kale came to her. She was sitting by the fire when her door opened, and then he was there, filling the room with his presence. He looked exhausted, the weight of command visible in every line of his body. You should be resting, she said. I couldn't sleep. Not without seeing you first. Seren studied his face, memorizing every detail. You're going to do something stupid tomorrow, aren't you? Probably. It's something of a specialty of mine. Kale. Her voice cracked. Don't die. Please. I just found you. He silenced her with a shock kiss. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. I need to tell you something. When I was lying in your shelter, burning with poison, I had a dream. I saw a woman made of starlight standing in a forest of silver trees. She told me I would find my true mate in the most unlikely place, that she would save my life with broken branches and stubborn hope. His voice roughened. And then I woke up, and you were there. Tears spilled down Seren's cheeks. I love you, he said. The words were raw, utterly sincere. And tomorrow I'm going to fight for you. For us. For the future we could have together. She kissed him then, pouring everything she couldn't say into the press of her lips. When they finally parted, Seren made her decision. I'm coming with you tomorrow. Seren, no. I'm not going to fight with swords. But I have a gift I've been hiding my whole life because I was afraid. I'm done being afraid. Understanding dawned in his expression. The Earth Song. You nearly died last time. Then I die protecting the people I love instead of hiding while they're slaughtered. She cupped his face in her hands. You said my shelter was made of broken branches. You were right. My whole life has been broken branches, Kyle. Scraps and remnants and barely enough to survive. But tomorrow, I'm going to show Malachar what a woman built from broken branches can do. Kale stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he bowed his head. My stubborn, magnificent mate, he murmured. How did I ever survive before you? Poorly, I imagine. His laugh was wet with unshed tears. Promise me that if it becomes too much, you'll stop. Seren couldn't promise that, but she nodded anyway, and let him hold her through the long hours until dawn. The battle began at first light. Seren stood on the ramparts of the Stormfang stronghold, watching Malachar's army pour across the southern valley like a black tide. At their head rode a man in silver armor, his banner depicting a wolf's head pierced by a sword. Lord Malachar himself had come to see his enemy destroyed. Below her, the wolf packs had assembled. 80 warriors against 300. By any rational measure, it was already over. But wolves didn't fight by rational measures. Kale stood at the front of his forces, his black and silver wolf form, massive and terrible. Around him, the pack alphas had gathered. They would charge when he charged, fight where he fought, and die where he died. They're so few, Fenella said quietly beside her. Few, Seren agreed, but not alone. She closed her eyes and reached for the Earth Song. It came easier this time, as if the forest had been waiting for her call. She felt the roots spreading beneath the valley, the trees standing sentinel on the hills, the very earth itself humming with ancient power. What are you? Fenella's voice trailed off as the ground beneath them began to tremble. Seren opened her eyes. In the valley below, the first wave of Malachars, soldiers had reached the wolf lines, steel clashed against fang and claw, and blood began to stain the snow. Kyle was a demon of fur and fury, tearing through enemies with savage precision, but for every soldier he felled, 2 more took their place. They were being overwhelmed. Now, Seren breathed, and unleashed the Earth Song. The valley floor erupted. Roots thick as tree trunks burst from the frozen ground, wrapping around soldiers' legs, their arms, their throats. Horses screamed and reared as the earth itself turned traitor beneath their hooves. Malachar's perfect formations dissolved into chaos. Seren poured more power into the connection. A siege weapon crumpled as roots crushed it from below. A cavalry charge foundered when the ground opened beneath the horses' feet. And through it all, the wolves pressed forward. But it wasn't enough. Malachar's soldiers were disciplined. They regrouped faster than she'd expected, hacking through roots with their blades. And the Earth Song was already taking its toll. Seren could feel blood trickling from her nose, her ears. Her vision was starting to blur. Seren. Fenella's voice was sharp with alarm. You have to stop. You're killing yourself. Not yet. She gritted her teeth and pushed harder. In the valley, Kale had reached Malachar himself. The 2 leaders faced each other, wolf against armored knight. Malachar raised his sword, and Seren saw the sickly gleam coating the blade, the same poison that had nearly killed Kale before. No! The scream tore from her throat. She reached for the Earth Song with desperate strength, commanding a root to rise, to block the blow. But she was too slow, too far away, too drained. The poisoned blade found its mark. Kale fell. Time stopped. Seren watched Kyle's wolf form crumple, watched the blood spread beneath him, and something inside her shattered. No. No. No, no. She was moving before she knew what she was doing, stumbling down from the ramparts, through the stronghold gates, into the chaos of the battlefield. Wolves and soldiers alike parted before her. She ran through blood and bodies, through screaming men and snarling beasts, until she fell to her knees beside the massive black wolf who had become her entire world. Kale. She pressed her hands to his wound, feeling the poison already spreading through his veins. Stay with me, please. His eyes flickered open, amber fading to dull gold. He shifted, bones cracking as he returned to human form, and suddenly she was cradling a man instead of a wolf. A dying man. Seren. Her name was a rasp on his lips. You came. Of course I came, you stupid, stubborn alpha. Tears streamed down her face. I love you. I love you. And you don't get to leave me. Not now. Not ever. Around them, the battle had stalled. Even Malachar had paused, a cruel smile twisting his lips. How touching, the Lord sneered. The witch weeps for her beast. Don't worry, girl. You'll join him soon enough. Seren ignored him. Her hands pressed harder against Kale's wound, and she reached once more for the earth song, even though she had nothing left to give. Please, she begged the forest, the earth, anything that would listen. Please help me save him. I'll give anything, everything. Just don't let him die. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, deep beneath the frozen ground, something stirred. The earth song that answered wasn't her own. It was older, vaster, a chorus of voices that had been sleeping since before humans walked the land. The spirits of the Valewood itself, awakened by her desperate plea. Power flooded through her, but this time it didn't burn. It filled her like sunlight, like spring rain. She felt her own life force intertwining with Kael's, felt the poison recoiling from the ancient magic now coursing through both of them. And then she felt something else. A pulling at the very core of her being, a call that demanded an answer. Without conscious thought, Seren leaned down and pressed her teeth to Kael's throat. The claiming bite was instinct, pure and primal. She tasted copper and pine and the wild essence of his wolf, and as her teeth broke his skin, the bond between them blazed to life. Not the fragile connection they'd shared before, but something permanent, unbreakable, eternal. Kael's back arched, his eyes flew open, blazing gold, and a howl tore from his throat that seemed to shake the very mountains. The sound was echoed by every wolf on the battlefield, a chorus of voices rising in recognition. Their alpha had been claimed. The bond was complete. Malachar's face twisted with fury. Kill them! Kill them both! But it was too late. The earth song surged through Seren one final time, and the Valewood answered with everything it had. Trees at the edge of the battlefield began to move, actually move, their ancient trunks uprooting themselves and striding forward like wooden giants. Roots and branches wove together into barriers that no sword could cut. And from the forest itself, more wolves emerged, dozens, hundreds, packs that had remained hidden until now, drawn by the howl of their high king. Malachar's army broke, men fled in every direction. Malachar himself tried to rally them, but a wall of roots rose before him, cutting off his escape. This isn't over, he snarled. You can't protect them all forever, witch. You'll do nothing. Kyle's voice was steady, strong, all traces of the poison gone. He rose to his feet, pulling Seren up with him. Your army is broken, your weapons have failed, and you stand on wolf territory, threatening my mate. He stepped forward, and Malachar stumbled back. By the ancient laws, your life is forfeit, but I'm going to be merciful. You're going to return to the lowlands and tell your king what you witnessed here today. Tell him the wolf packs are united under one banner. Tell him the northern reaches have a new protector. His eyes burned. And tell him that if he ever threatens my people again, I won't be merciful twice. The roots parted, creating a narrow path toward the south. Malachar fled without another word. In the aftermath, Seren stood at the center of the battlefield, surrounded by wolves who looked at her with something like reverence. You saved us. Fenella said, approaching with tears in her eyes. All of us. The forest saved us. Saren replied. I just asked nicely. A laugh rippled through the gathered wolves. And then Kale was there, pulling her into his arms, holding her like he would never let go. My mate, he murmured against her hair. My magnificent, impossible mate. Your mate, she agreed, the word settling into her bones like it had always belonged there. Ren came running through the crowd, throwing himself at both of them. Kale caught him easily, lifting the boy onto his hip like it was the most natural thing in the world. You did it, Ren crowed. You made the trees walk. Don't give her ideas, Kale said dryly. She's dangerous enough already. Saren laughed, and it felt like the first real laugh she'd had in years. Later, after the wounded had been tended and the dead had been honored, Kale led her to the edge of the stronghold where construction had already begun on a new building. Wolves in human form were laying foundations, raising walls, working together with practiced efficiency. What is this? Saren asked. Your new home? Kale's voice was soft. I know you built your shelter from broken branches, from scraps and remnants and desperate hope. I know you survived on nothing for moons because no one thought you were worth helping. He turned her to face him, his eyes glowing with love. But your pack now, Saren. My pack. And pack provides for its own. He gestured at the construction. This is being built from pack timber, the strongest wood, the best craftsmanship. Everything you never had and always deserved. Saren stared at the rising walls, at the wolves working together to build something beautiful, and felt tears spill down her cheeks. You built a shelter with broken branches, Kale said softly, and the Alpha King is answering with pack timber. Because you are worth more than survival, my love. You are worth a home. She kissed him then, pouring all her gratitude and love and hope into the press of her lips. Around them, wolves howled their approval, and even the distant trees seemed to sway in celebration. She had spent her whole life running, hiding, surviving on the margins of a world that didn't want her. But here, in the arms of her mate, surrounded by a pack that had chosen her as their own, Saren finally understood what it meant to belong. She was home at last. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. A big thank you to everyone who's following. Your support truly means the world to me.